Now let's start with today's story. This whole mess started about 6 months before my wife, Emily, dropped the divorce bomb on me. We'd been married for a year at that point, together for 4 years total, and honestly, everything was perfect before all this started. She was the sweetest person I'd ever met, always planning little surprise dates, leaving cute notes in my lunch. Yeah, I know, we were that couple. She was just incredibly thoughtful about everything. If I had a rough day at work, she'd make my favorite homemade lasagna from scratch, no questions asked. She remembered every little anniversary, even the dumb ones, like our first movie together. Everyone used to tell us we were relationship goals, and I believed them. We never had any real fights, just the usual couple bickering over dumb stuff like whose turn it was to do the dishes or me leaving my socks on the floor. Nothing major. Then things started getting weird. At first, it was small stuff, things I could have easily brushed off. She suddenly got really interested in our finances. And I don't mean the normal, hey, we should probably start saving for a house kind of way. No, she started asking really specific questions about our accounts, our investments, even my finances from before we got married. It was strange. Emily had never cared about that before. She always let me handle everything since I work in finance, and it made sense. I was good at it. She never had to worry about money. I made sure of that. If she wanted something, I made it happen. So why the sudden deep dive into every cent I had? One night, we were having dinner, just a regular Tuesday night. She made pasta, I poured us some wine, and we were talking about weekend plans when, out of nowhere, she asked, "Hey, so, how exactly is your inheritance from your grandparents stored?" I blinked at her, fork halfway to my mouth. "What? You know," she said, twirling her fork in her pasta like this was a totally normal conversation. Like, is it all in one account? Or investments? Trusts? I put my fork down. Why do you suddenly care about that? She shrugged. I just think I should know these things. We're married, after all. I studied her for a second. Her tone was light, casual, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I told her before that my inheritance was safely invested and that I barely touched it, yet she was asking again. Okay, I said slowly. Well, like I told you before, most of it is in long-term investments. Some in real estate, some in stocks. Nothing super exciting. She nodded, still twirling her pasta. And you're the only one with access to it? Now, that was an odd question. Yeah, I said, watching her carefully. It's my inheritance, Em. Right. Yeah, just curious, she said quickly, before changing the subject to a new coffee shop that opened downtown. I tried to shake it off, but the whole thing left a weird taste in my mouth. Then there were the phone calls. Emily would be in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone like normal when it would ring. She'd glance at the screen, get up, and walk into another room, closing the door behind her. At first, I didn't think much of it. But then it kept happening. One night, I was sitting on the couch watching a game when I heard her phone vibrate on the counter. She was rinsing a dish in the sink when she saw the caller ID. Without missing a beat, she dried her hands, grabbed the phone, and headed straight to our bedroom, shutting the door softly behind her. I sat up a little. That wasn't like her. Emily had never been secretive about her phone before. She'd take calls in front of me all the time, even put people on speaker when she was cooking. But now, she was walking away, closing doors. That became a trend. When she'd come back, if I asked who it was, she'd always have some vague answer. Oh, just work stuff, she'd say with a quick smile. Or, just catching up with an old friend. Nothing important. Every time, the same thing. Never a name. Never any details. Then the late nights at work started picking up. Emily's a project manager at a tech company, so working late wasn't completely unusual. Before, it happened maybe once a month, usually around big deadlines. But now, it was 2, sometimes 3 times a week. And here's the thing that really got me. She wasn't charging dinner on our shared credit card anymore. I always handled the bills, so I noticed. Before, whenever she had a late night, there'd be a charge for takeout or a quick stop at a cafe. But now, nothing. So either she was eating the world's longest series of packed lunches, or something wasn't adding up. But the thing that really set off alarm bells? She started obsessively checking our online banking. I only noticed because I work at a bank, and our system tracks login activity. She'd never checked it more than maybe once a month, usually just to make sure her paycheck had gone through. Now, she was logging in multiple times a day. I remember casually bringing it up one night when we were brushing our teeth. Hey, I noticed you've been checking the bank accounts a lot lately. Everything okay? She froze for just a fraction of a second, so quick I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching her reflection in the mirror. Then she forced a little laugh. Oh yeah? Just trying to be more responsible, you know? I figured I should start keeping track of things better. She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. You sure? I pressed, spitting out my toothpaste. Yeah, of course, she said, turning off the sink. It's nothing, babe. Just me being proactive. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But I've worked in finance long enough to know that when someone suddenly gets super interested in money and accounts, something's usually up. It's like when clients start asking weirdly detailed questions about their investments. 9 times out of 10, they're planning something. I started paying attention to other things, too. Like how she'd get really quiet whenever I talked about future plans. We were supposed to go on this big vacation for our 2nd anniversary, Mexico, all-inclusive, just the 2 of us. We'd been talking about it for months. But now, every time I brought it up, she'd change the subject. Hey, I was looking at flights for our trip. Oh, remind me later, okay? I'm swamped with work right now. Or, should we book the hotel this weekend? Let's hold off for a bit. Things are kinda crazy at work. It wasn't just the trip, either. One night, we were watching TV, and a commercial came on for some baby product. I nudged her playfully. Maybe we should start thinking about this soon. Huh? She barely even looked at me. Oh yeah? Maybe. Then she grabbed the remote and changed the channel. It was like she didn't even want to talk about the future anymore. And the weirdest part? She started getting really interested in my work schedule. Like, suddenly needing to know exactly when I'd be home, when I had late meetings, when I'd be out of the house. At first, I thought maybe she was planning some kind of surprise. Our anniversary was coming up, after all. But something about it just felt off. So I started keeping a note on my phone. Not in a creepy way, just dates and basic details. It's part of my job to look for patterns and data, and after a few weeks, when I sat down and really looked at everything I'd written, the pattern was pretty clear. Something was definitely up. My gut was telling me that the sudden focus on finances, the interest in my schedule, and our accounts, it felt more calculated than just wanting to be more responsible. One night over dinner, she brought it up again. Hey, how exactly does your 401k work? She asked, twirling her fork through her pasta. Like, what happens if something happens to you? Who gets it? She tried to make it sound casual, but I caught the way her fingers tensed slightly around her fork. I set mine down. Why do you keep asking about this stuff lately? I tried to keep my tone light, but my chest felt tight. Did I do something? Are you upset about something? She barely looked up. No, I just think we should be more prepared, you know? In case life throws something unexpected our way. Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was looking too hard for patterns because I wanted to find something. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever she was planning, it wasn't just about financial security. I had to listen to my gut. And yeah, what I did next still makes me feel guilty sometimes, even though it ended up saving my ass. I started quietly protecting myself. I know how that sounds. Like I was being paranoid. Like I didn't trust my wife. Trust me, I spent plenty of sleepless nights feeling like the worst husband ever for even thinking this way. But here's the thing about working in finance. You see people get screwed over all the time because they didn't protect themselves. I can't count how many times I've had clients come in, devastated, because they trusted someone completely and got burned. So I figured, better safe than sorry, right? The first thing I did was document everything. And I mean everything. Every gift we'd ever given each other. We actually exchanged plenty. Every major purchase. Every joint account. Every investment. I even went through our wedding gifts and made a detailed list. It probably looked insane. Me hunched over my laptop at 2 a.m., cross-referencing bank statements and receipts, filling out spreadsheet after spreadsheet. But I didn't care. And then, I did something that honestly felt really sneaky at the time. I opened a separate account at a different bank. Not to hide money or do anything shady. Just to have something that was completely mine. I moved my personal inheritance from my grandparents into the new account, about $50,000. Technically, it was separate property anyway, so I wasn't doing anything wrong. Just making sure it stayed mine. Then I started keeping all my receipts and taking photos of the expensive stuff we owned. One afternoon, while she was working late, I went around the house and took pictures of everything valuable, especially the things we'd given each other as gifts. It felt like I was doing some weird insurance inventory or something. LOL. The trickiest part was figuring out what to do about our joint investments. We had this portfolio we'd built together. She'd never shown interest in it before. But suddenly, she was asking all these questions. Hey, how easy would it be to cash out some of our long-term investments? She asked one night while we were cleaning up after dinner. Like, would there be big penalties? I paused mid-rinse, the plate in my hand suddenly feeling heavier. Why? She shrugged, a little too quickly. Just curious. You know, in case we ever need access to that money fast. Red flag. So, I started slowly, very slowly, moving my personal contributions into more secure positions. Again, nothing shady or illegal. Just protecting what was mine to begin with. Then came the moment that really confirmed I was doing the right thing. She came home from work, practically buzzing with excitement. Babe, you won't believe this, she said, tossing her bag onto the counter. One of my coworkers told me about this amazing investment opportunity. We should totally look into it. I leaned against the fridge. Oh yeah? What kind of investment? She waved a hand. It's complicated, something with startups and crypto. But the return potential is insane. I raised an eyebrow. Okay, so what's the company? Who's running it? She hesitated. I mean, I don't have all the details yet, but my friend's putting money into it, and he knows this kind of stuff. That made my stomach turn. And you think we should cash out some of our investments for this? I asked. She smiled. Just a little. Nothing crazy. But, if we move some money around, we could really get in early. Red flag city. I played it cool. Just nodded and said I'd think about it. But inside, my alarms were blaring. That's when I started looking closer at our spending patterns. She'd always been pretty good with money. Never a big spender. But lately, I noticed a pattern. Lots of small withdrawals from our joint account. Not enough to raise immediate suspicion. But when I added it all up, eye-opening. And the whole time I was doing this, I felt like such a jerk. Here I was, a supposedly loving husband, basically preparing for everything to go to hell. Some nights, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, thinking maybe, just maybe, I was being paranoid. Maybe I was creating problems that weren't really there. But then, she'd do something else. She'd ask weirdly specific questions about our savings. She'd wonder out loud what divorce settlements usually looked like. Or she'd casually bring up how her friend got totally screwed over in her split. And suddenly, I didn't feel so paranoid anymore. I even started keeping a record of when she was working late or taking those mysterious phone calls. Just dates and times in a password-protected note on my phone. Not in a stalker way. But you know how sometimes you just need proof that you're not crazy? Yeah, that kind of thing. The hardest part? Acting normal through all of this. Imagine sitting across from someone at dinner, laughing, talking about normal stuff, while also low-key preparing for them to screw you over. It's exhausting. And every time she did something sweet or normal, brought me coffee, kissed my cheek, asked about my day, I'd feel guilty all over again. I actually did try to talk to her about it. Many times. Is something on your mind? I'd ask. Anything we need to talk about? But she'd just brush it off. No, babe. You're overthinking things. Gave me nothing. And honestly, pushing harder would have just made her more careful about whatever she was up to. Sometimes, the smartest move isn't confronting. It's shutting up and paying attention. Quick side note. Some of you might be thinking, dude, why didn't you just get marriage counseling or something? Well, I actually suggested it once. Casually. You should have seen how fast she shot that idea down. We're fine, she said. You're just being insecure. Classic. Gaslighting, right? And then, everything unraveled. One morning. You know those moments that change your life forever? They never happen the way you expect. No dramatic thunderstorm. No ominous music in the background. Just, Tuesday. I was sitting at our kitchen island, having my usual coffee, scrolling through work emails. She was making toast. And I remember thinking how weird it was that she was up so early, since she usually slept in on her WFH days. Then she just did it. She pulled a manila envelope from her work bag and slid it across the counter to me, like she was passing me the morning paper. I didn't even look at it at first. Probably some house paperwork or whatever. But then, I saw her face. That weird expression. Blank, but also satisfied. That's when I knew. I want a divorce, she said. Super calm. Like she was telling me we needed more milk from the store. I just sat there. My coffee cup still halfway to my mouth. Probably looking like a complete idiot. The crazy thing? Even though I'd been preparing for something bad, this still felt like getting slapped in the face. I opened the envelope. Yep. Divorce papers. All filled out. Just waiting for my signature. She'd clearly been planning this for a while. Had probably already talked to a lawyer. Had everything mapped out. And there I was, still in my pajama pants, trying to process what the hell was happening. You know what's really messed up? My first thought wasn't even about our marriage ending. It was, thank God I moved that inheritance money. How screwed up is that? For years together, and in that moment, all I could think about was being glad I protected my assets. She started talking again. Some rehearsed speech. I don't know. I'm not in love anymore. People grow apart, you know? It happens. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a script. She wouldn't even look at me. Just last night, she was curled up against me on the couch, laughing at some dumb Netflix show. And now she was sitting here, feeding me the most generic breakup speech imaginable. I let her talk. Didn't interrupt. Didn't react. Probably looked stunned. But inside, my brain was running through a mental checklist. Separate account? Check. Documentation of assets? Check. Photos of valuables? Check. It was like my emotions got shoved into a corner while my survival instincts took over. When she finally stopped talking, she just sat there, watching me, waiting for some kind of explosion. Instead, I took a slow sip of my now cold coffee, set it down, and said, okay. Her expression was priceless. Like I'd just thrown a wrench in whatever reaction she was expecting. She blinked. Scoffed. That's it. Okay. I shrugged. What else do you want me to say? You're not even going to ask why. I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. Looked at her. Was it because I didn't give you what you deserved? Or because I wasn't giving enough in this relationship? Her face shifted. Surprise, then something else. Something unreadable. No, she said, shaking her head. It's not that. You were good to me. I don't know. I don't think I want to be in a marriage any. She hesitated. I don't want to be committed like this. That was an answer. But not really. Not one that made sense. And it confirmed what I already knew. There was more to this than she was saying. I let the silence stretch between us before finally saying, I'll have my lawyer look over the papers. For a split second, there was panic in her eyes. Just a flicker. Then mask on. Oh, you already have a lawyer? Her voice was too casual, too forced. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. She forced a smile. Great. That's great. I mean, no need to make this harder than it has to be, right? I just held her gaze. Yeah, sure. Like hell, that's the real reason she's in such a hurry. Red flag number 478. But I didn't feel anything in the moment. Just cold. Detached. The rest of that morning was surreal. She went to work in her home office while I sat there at the kitchen counter, staring at these papers that were basically saying, hey, your life as you know it is over. Then I did what any rational person would do. I called in sick to work and started making phone calls. First, to my lawyer. Thank God I'd already quietly consulted one. Then to my bank to double-check all my accounts. The weirdest part? We still had dinner together that night. Like, who does that? Sits down to eat chicken stir-fry with someone who literally served them divorce papers that morning? But there we were, eating in this super awkward silence, both pretending this was somehow normal. She barely touched her food. I barely tasted mine. When I finally set my fork down, I looked at her and said, why now? She glanced up mid-bite. What do you mean? You could have left a year ago, 2 years ago. Why now? Her fingers tightened around her chopsticks. Does it matter? It does to me. A long pause. Then, she sighed. I just reached a breaking point, I guess. It was time. Another non-answer. I let it go. That night, I went to bed in the guest room. My choice. Needed space to think. Laying there, staring at the ceiling, I tried to figure out what her endgame was. Because this whole thing, the way she did it, something wasn't adding up. The divorce itself went surprisingly smooth. Probably because I didn't contest anything. I mean, what's the point of fighting to keep someone who clearly doesn't want to stay? I kept the house. Bought her out. Split our joint accounts. Basic divorce stuff. And then, things got weird. Like, really weird. 2 weeks after the settlement was finalized, she just disappeared. And I don't mean she's not returning my calls disappeared. I mean just disappear. Gone. Completely off the grid. At first, I didn't even notice. I mean, we were divorced. Why would I keep tabs on her? But then, her friends started calling me. Turns out, she'd quit her job. Just walked in one day, handed in her resignation, and left. No 2 weeks notice. No explanation. Nothing. Her boss called me first. We'd had dinner with him and his wife a few times, so I recognized the number, but I wasn't expecting the question that came next. Hey, Mark. Sorry to bother you, but is everything okay with her? I remember standing in my kitchen, gripping my coffee mug, completely baffled. Why the hell would I know? We're literally divorced. He hesitated. She quit. No notice, no explanation. Just walked in, handed in her resignation, and left. Won't answer any of my calls. I had no idea what to tell him. Sorry, man. We haven't talked since the paperwork was finalized. She wanted out, so she's out. Then Kate called. In tears. She blocked me, Mark. On everything. Her phone, social media, email, just gone. I sighed. I don't know what to tell you, Kate. We're not together anymore. But it's not just me. She said, voice cracking. She blocked everyone. Our whole friend group. Her coworkers. Even her damn yoga instructor. You know how much she loved that class. Why would she just disappear like that? I didn't have an answer. And then the digging started. Yeah, I probably should have just stayed out of it, but something about the whole thing didn't sit right. I tried calling her. Number disconnected. I checked her social media. Gone. Not deactivated, deleted. I even sent an email just to see if it would bounce back. It did. It was like she was erasing herself from existence. The really messed up part? Her friends were worried. They weren't just mad or confused. They were scared. They thought something had happened to her. They kept reaching out, asking me if I'd heard from her, but I kept repeating the same thing. I have nothing to do with her anymore. Even her family was acting weird. Her brother, who I used to be pretty close with, wouldn't answer my calls. Neither would her parents, which was even stranger. Her mom used to call me her bonus son, always checking in even when her daughter and I were on shaky ground. Now, radio silence. They knew something, but they weren't sharing. Then, about a month into her disappearance, I found out she'd closed all her local bank accounts. Not transferred, Closed. The bank manager, small town guy, mentioned it casually when I was in there dealing with some paperwork. Yeah, she came in, closed everything out, took a cashier's check. Wouldn't say where she was going. And honestly, the weirdest part? I wasn't even that surprised. Shocked, sure, but not surprised. It was like all those months of strange behavior had been leading up to this grand finale. The sudden interest in my schedule, the late-night phone calls she always stepped away to take, the random questions about our finances. She had been planning this, setting it all up, piece by piece. Her friends eventually gave up trying to find her. What else could they do? She clearly didn't want to be found. But man, the theories never stopped. Every time I ran into someone who used to know her, they had some new idea about where she went or why she left. Me? I tried to move on. What else could I do? I had a house to maintain, a job to focus on, a life to live. And eventually, I just forgot her. About 5 months after the whole vanishing act, I finally felt like I had everything figured out. Life was actually going well. I started hitting the gym regularly. Yeah, I know, typical divorce guy move. I got a promotion at work, started sleeping through the night without waking up stressed, and even started dating again. Her name is Brittany. She's a pediatric nurse at the local children's hospital, and she's the complete opposite of my ex. All sunshine and bubbles, pink scrubs with little unicorns on them, and an energy that somehow made every room brighter. We met at this little coffee shop near my office. She literally bumped into me and spilled her strawberry frappuccino all over both of us. Rom-com level meet cute. Oh my God, I am so sorry. She gasped, grabbing napkins and frantically dabbing at my shirt. I laughed. Hey, at least I'll smell like strawberries all day. She insisted on paying for my dry cleaning, which I refused, and before I left, she shyly handed me her number. We started texting, and from there, it just clicked. So yeah, life was getting good. Brittany and I were officially dating. I was killing it at work, and I was finally feeling like myself again. Then boom. Guess who showed up at my door at 9 p.m. on a random Thursday? Yep, the ghost herself. My ex-wife. The timing could not have been worse. Brittany was over. We were making cookies, watching some Netflix baking show, and just having a relaxed, perfect night. Then came the knocking, loud, aggressive, urgent. I opened the door, and there she was, looking like she'd been through hell and back. First thing out of her mouth? Whose car is that in the driveway? Not hello. Not hey, can we talk? Nope. She was locked onto Brittany's white Volkswagen Beetle, complete with the little flower vase. Yes, really, parked right next to my car. I sighed. It's my girlfriend's car. And holy, the look on her face. It was like I had just told her I sold our house to a pack of wolves. She went from desperate to furious in half a second. But here's where it gets really wild. Instead of talking about where she'd been for the last 5 months or why she was suddenly showing up at my door, she started going off about how fast I had moved on. Seriously, Mark? You're already dating someone? Do I mean that little to you? I blinked. You disappeared. Without a trace. After blindsiding me with divorce papers. And you're mad that I'm dating someone? She scoffed. It's just, God, how could you move on so fast? Clearly, you never loved me if it was this easy for you. I could hear Brittany moving around in the kitchen, probably wondering what was going on. The whole situation felt surreal. My ex stood in the doorway, looking like a mess, ranting about my lack of feelings, when Brittany, sweet soul that she is, peeked her head around the corner. She smiled and waved. Hi. My ex took one look at Brittany and let out this sharp, disbelieving laugh. Then she turned back to me, shaking her head. Really? This is your type now? Some basic Barbie who bakes cookies? That's when I got pissed. Look, you can come at me all you want, but Brittany? She's literally the nicest person I've ever met. She volunteers at animal shelters on weekends. She cries during Disney movies. She's done nothing to you, so don't stand here and act like you're better than her. Brittany, bless her, just stood there with this polite, almost amused expression, like she'd seen this kind of drama before and wasn't about to let it ruin her night. But before I could say anything else, my ex suddenly switched gears. Just like that, Brittany was no longer the issue. Now it was about money. Specifically, she wanted back all the expensive jewelry and gifts she had given me during our marriage. The whiplash from how dare you move on to where's my stuff was unreal. I just stood there, trying to process the mood swing, while Brittany quietly retreated back to the kitchen. Later, she told me she started stress baking a second batch of cookies. I exhaled. I sold most of it after the divorce and donated the rest to charity. That was the truth. It had been part of my whole fresh start thing. If I thought she was mad before, that was nothing compared to this. You did what? She practically shrieked. You had no right to sell my gifts. That was my money. You should have given it back to me. She kept yelling, listing off the items like I had stolen them from a vault in her house. The whole time, I just stood there, watching her unravel on my doorstep, thinking about how strange life was. 5 months ago, this woman was my wife. We shared a bed, a life, everything. Now, she was a stranger, screaming at me like I owed her something, while my new girlfriend was in the kitchen, stress baking. Eventually, I'd had enough. I closed the door in her face. Mid-rant. Probably not the most mature response, but honestly, she lost the right to yell at me in my own house the moment she served me divorce papers over breakfast. I walked back to the kitchen. Brittany glanced up, handed me a warm cookie, and with that same calm, sweet voice, said, "So, that was interesting." God, I loved how she could make even the most awkward situations better. But something told me this wasn't over. The way my ex had looked when she left, she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 3 days after the Barbie incident, that's what Brittany calls it now, my phone started buzzing at 11 p.m. It was a number I hadn't seen in months. My former brother-in-law, Mike. Mike and I used to be really tight. We'd go to football games together, grab coffee after work, just normal best friend shit. He was like the brother I never had. But when the divorce happened, he blocked me everywhere. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. That stung more than I liked to admit. So seeing his number pop up out of nowhere? Yeah, that was weird. I wish I could say I handled it maturely, but the first thing out of my mouth was, "Oh, so you remember how to use a phone." He ignored the sass. Just jumped straight into this clearly rehearsed speech about how I needed to do the right thing and help his sister out. He went on and on about how she was family for 4 years, how I owed her this one thing, how I should be a decent person for once, blah, blah, blah. The whole time, all I could think was, where was this family loyalty when she was serving me divorce papers over breakfast? Then he dropped the bomb. Man, if the roles were reversed, she would have helped you out. No questions asked. I actually laughed out loud. Full on snorted. Are we talking about the same person? I asked. The woman who wouldn't even tell me why she wanted a divorce. Who disappeared without a trace. Who showed up at my house just to insult my girlfriend. That's who would have helped me out? I could practically hear him gritting his teeth through the phone. I told her the same thing I'm telling you, I said. I sold the stuff. Gave some to charity. End of story. Mike didn't like that answer. His voice got sharper. More aggressive. You're not the person I thought you were, he snapped. I can't believe I was ever friends with someone like you. That's when I snapped. Oh, really? I shot back. Maybe you should ask your sister about all the expensive shit I gave her, including the car she's still driving around in. Or did she forget to mention that part? Silence. I pressed on. Did she tell you about showing up at my house and insulting my girlfriend? Real curious if she mentioned disappearing for 5 months without a word to anyone. More silence. And in that pause, I knew. Some of this was news to him. But instead of actually thinking about it, instead of maybe realizing his sister wasn't the innocent victim in all this, he doubled down. You're being petty, he snapped. You're just bitter about the divorce. Here's the thing, though, throughout the entire conversation, I could tell he was dancing around something. There was more to the story. Something he wasn't telling me. Every time I pushed back on why she suddenly needed money so badly, he got weird. Vague. Like he was trying to cover for her. I finally cut him off. If your sister needs money so desperately, I said, maybe she shouldn't have quit her 6-figure job and disappeared for months. That shut him up pretty quick. Then I hit him with the real kicker. Your sister wasn't even worth staying married to, I said. But at least I thought our friendship had been real. Guess I was wrong about that too. I hung up before he could respond. Blocked his number. Why not? Everyone else in that family had blocked me months ago. Might as well return the favor. Brittany was staying over that night. She stays over most nights now. Another thing that probably pissed off my ex. She could tell something was up the moment I walked in, but instead of pushing me to talk about it, she just put on our comfort show and ordered late-night pizza. This girl, I swear, she just gets it. But lying there that night, while Brittany slept beside me, I couldn't stop thinking about how weird all of this was. My ex disappears for months, then suddenly shows up demanding money. Her brother, who hasn't spoken to me since the divorce, calls out of nowhere to guilt-trip me into helping her. None of it added up. What kind of trouble was she in that she needed money this badly? And why didn't she just sell the car I bought her if she was so desperate? That thing was worth way more than the jewelry she gave me. Then, less than 24 hours after the drama with Mike, I got a text. 4 a.m. Who the hell texts at 4 a.m. unless something's seriously wrong? It was a long paragraph. She said she needed to meet me one last time. Said she'd tell me everything. The whole truth this time. My first instinct was to ignore it. I was done with the drama. Plus, Brittany and I had plans that day to check out this cute little farmer's market she'd been talking about all week. But something about that text felt different. Maybe it was the timestamp. Maybe it was the way she wrote it. But it felt desperate. Over breakfast, I showed the message to Brittany. She was already making coffee, wearing one of my old t-shirts and a pair of shorts, looking like she belonged there. She stays over so often now that half my closet is filled with her colorful scrubs. She read the message, took a sip of her coffee, and then, without even looking up, said, "Babe, you need closure. Go hear her out." Then she kissed my cheek and said she'd go to the farmer's market with her sister instead. Sometimes I wonder what I did to deserve someone this understanding. So, I agreed to meet. My ex told her to come to this coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Plus, it's always busy, so she couldn't make a scene. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. Gone was the power suit wearing career woman I had married. Instead, she was in sweats, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were puffy, her hair thrown into a messy bun, and her hands trembled slightly as she sat down. She just stared at them for a minute before finally speaking. And holy shit, you guys. Turns out she had been cheating. But not just any cheating. No, this wasn't a coworker or some random fling. She'd been having an affair with someone she met at her high school reunion. I immediately recalled that night. How she had insisted on going alone, saying I wouldn't enjoy it, that it was just going to be a bunch of people reminiscing about the past. Turns out, she'd reconnected with some guy she used to date back in the day. Apparently, they had this incredible connection or whatever. But here's where it gets wild. After the divorce, they decided to go all in on their dream life together. This dude convinced her they should buy a farm. A farm. I blinked at her. Wait, I said, holding up a hand. You left your six-figure job to become a farmer? She actually looked embarrassed. Turns out, neither of them knew the first thing about farming. I laughed, like full-on, people staring at me kind of laugh. They had this romantic idea about living off the land or some shit, but reality hit them hard. They ended up having to hire actual farmers to run the place, which, shocker, ate through their money fast. But wait, it gets better. Remember how she was so desperate for money? Turns out, she's pregnant. With Farm Boy's baby. They burned through all their savings trying to keep the farm running, and now they're broke, with a baby on the way. I just sat there for a full minute, staring at her, processing. This was the same woman who had refused to get a dog because it was too much responsibility. And now she was having a baby with a wannabe farmer she had known for barely a year. The whole thing was so absurd that I actually started laughing. She didn't appreciate that. Her face crumpled, and she started crying, saying she knew she had messed up, that she had made a huge mistake. She admitted she had been too embarrassed to tell anyone where she really was, which was why she cut contact with everyone. Her family knew some of it, but not the whole story, especially not about how badly the farm was failing. And then she hit me with it. She actually asked if I'd consider giving her another chance. I stared at her, speechless. She wiped at her tears and kept going. I realized what a mistake I made, she said, voice shaking. Farm boy, he's not who I thought he was. I miss our life together, Mark. I miss you. I looked at her, pregnant with another man's baby, crying in a coffee shop, asking me to take her back, and felt nothing. Actually, that's not true. I felt grateful. Grateful that she had served me those divorce papers. Grateful that she had shown her true colors. Grateful for every red flag that had made me protect myself financially. But most of all, I felt grateful for Brittany. Sweet, kind, drama-free Brittany, who was probably at the farmer's market right now, texting me pictures of puppies she saw and buying way too many succulents. So I told my ex exactly that. Your poor life choices aren't my problem anymore, I said, voice calm, steady. You gave up any right to my help when you cheated. When you lied. When you tried to manipulate me. The look on her face when I mentioned the cheating? Priceless. I guess she didn't think I had figured that part out. She tried to argue. Mark, we were together for 4 years. You can't just throw that away. I still care about you. I cut her off. I have to go, I said, standing up. I need to buy some succulents for my girlfriend. And just like that, I walked out. As I stepped into the crisp afternoon air, I felt lighter, like the last piece of a puzzle had finally fallen into place. Everything made sense now. The weird behavior before the divorce, the quick disappearance, the desperate return. But something told me this still wasn't over. My ex wasn't the type to just accept defeat and walk away. And I called it. 2 days after our coffee shop chat, she showed up at my house. This time, Brittany wasn't there, night shift at the hospital, which was probably for the best considering what went down. It was midnight when the banging started. Mark, open the damn door. I shot up from bed, groggy and confused, but as soon as I heard her voice, I groaned. You have got to be kidding me. Then came the yelling. You owe me. You're being selfish. You have no right to judge my life choices. The neighbors were definitely getting a show. I yanked open the door, mostly to stop the banging, but she barged in before I could say a word. Still ranting. Still acting like I was the villain in her tragic little story. And that's when I snapped. For years together, and I had never raised my voice at her. But this time I lost it. You have some nerve showing up here, I said, my voice sharp. You cheated. You ran off to play farmer with your high school sweetheart. And now, after burning through all your money, you come crawling back and act like I owe you something? She opened her mouth to speak, But I didn't let her. You wanted the divorce. You disappeared. You made your bed. I took a step closer, leveling my gaze at her. Now you can lie in it. She tried to pull the pregnancy card again. Tears welled up in her eyes as she started sobbing about medical bills and baby expenses, acting like I was supposed to care. Mark, I don't have anyone else to turn to, she sniffled. You don't understand how expensive this is. I'm drowning here. I just laughed. Maybe you should sell that car I bought you, I said, crossing my arms. You know, the one you conveniently forgot about when asking for your gifts back? That's when she lost it. Her face twisted with rage as she started calling me every name in the book. You're a heartless bastard. You'll regret this, Mark. I swear you will. I was done. I grabbed my phone and held it up. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the cops. She scoffed, folding her arms. You wouldn't. I smirked and started dialing. Right in front of her. Her eyes went wide the second she heard the first ring. Now she believed me. She stormed out, practically slamming the door off its hinges. But just before she disappeared down the porch steps, she whirled around for one last shot. I hope you and Barbie are very happy together. I smiled. We are. Then I slammed the door, blocked her number, and let out a deep breath. A few seconds later, I texted Brittany, who was on her break at the hospital, and told her what had happened. Her response came almost instantly. Want me to bring home donuts after my shift? Sugar makes everything better. And you know what? She was right. Not just about the donuts, but about everything being better. Better than it ever was with my ex. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting happy. And yes, for everyone asking, Brittany and I are still together. No, I haven't heard from my ex since that night. Yes, Brittany still bakes amazing cookies. And yes, our kitchen windowsill is now full of succulents. Life's good.